Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. And the minute I turned the camera on, my bad boy decided to climb into my lap. So yes, this is another one of his photo bomb weekends. Here, come here. Let me just pick you up so they can see you. Stuck up as usual. He hasn't been doing much of anything lately. He did go outside. This morning, the sun was shining so brightly. It's still really bright right now. But it was so just sunny and pleasant looking. So naturally, he had to go out and play. He got outside, and it wasn't even 10 minutes when he was back at the door, screaming and wailing because it was 9 degrees out there. And he didn't like that very much at all. So I guess that's what we've got in terms of Audie news. He's disappointed that it's still quite cold. Now, the upside is that by the middle of this coming week, it should be back to what is normal for Pennsylvania this time of year, which is daytime temperatures in the 30s and 40s and nighttime temperatures in the 20s maybe. And mind you, I'm not a native Pennsylvanian, so this is just based on my own experiences living here for the last few years. But Audie does not like it. By the way, he probably is a native Pennsylvanian. I'm sure he was born in this state, but he does not care for this at all. So we are going to take a look at the intro. I'm going to take my bad boy into the kitchen and see if I can bribe a little good behavior out of him with a few cat treats. And we will be right back. So before we get into the topic under discussion today, let me just take a moment to thank some of our viewers yesterday. Well, obviously, thanks to all of you who left comments. I'm sure you must know how much I enjoy your comments by now. But a couple of you left me tips on how to more effectively deal with my gym bag. And these are interesting tips, not really how to organize it, but how to protect the stuff in there. One of our viewers had suggested I get a couple of cheap dollar store shower caps and use them to store my sneakers. Take the sneakers off, throw each sneaker into a shower cap, you're good to go, and you haven't left a mess in your bag. I like that. That is a really good idea. I had never worried too much about that in the past because you've already figured it out. I'm very OCD when it comes to my shoes. So when I come home, I take my shoes off. I will let them sit around for an hour or two. Let whatever moisture may have accumulated dissipate into the atmosphere, and then I will clean them. By the way, that includes taking a toothbrush and scrubbing the mud out of the little treads on the bottom of my sneakers. And then when I am all done with that, that's when they go back into their box, and oh yes, they go back into their box and back on the shelf. So I never really thought of myself as having dirty shoes. But the truth of the matter is, between the time I leave the house in the morning and the time that I come back and clean the shoes, that could be 6 or 8 hours. And that could be 6 or 8 hours in the mud, in the snow, in the salt, in whatever is going on out in the environment. And that could be a great deal of mess. So yeah, shower caps are a very good idea. So thank you. I'll be doing that. And another viewer had said, what about packing a bag for your towels? So you take it home, when it's wet, you can throw it into a bag. That's something else I had not considered, mostly because, and this is something I've been doing for years, go into the shower, I take off the clothes that I was wearing, that goes into the bag, the wet towel goes into the bag, and then I come home, they all go into the wash. So I hadn't really considered dealing with moisture accumulation in the gym bag. That is an easy fix because all I have to do is take a trash can liner, and I have plenty of those, but if I didn't have a trash can liner, I could go to my local grocery store, go over to the produce section, and the section where they're selling things like corn on the cob. They usually have larger, sturdier produce bags, and I always grab a couple of those when I'm in the store simply because I can use them. I can take them home and they are useful. They're not exactly a pretty box, but you give me a plastic bag, I can do something with it. And if your store doesn't have the extra heavy produce bags, they will almost always have larger bags in the meat department. So if you buy a big roast, you can throw it into a bag and it's not dripping, because we all know no matter how carefully they package meats, sometimes they do drip. And it's nice to have that extra large bag. The stores know that, so they provide them for free. Either one of those bags would be plenty big enough for a wet towel, too. So you don't even need to come up with your own trash bag. I like that idea, and I am absolutely going to employ it. Also, while we are on the subject of viewer input, today's video topic came from one of our viewers. And it's very interesting. We have been around this topic, adjacent to this topic, we've practically been poking it with a stick. But we've never actually done this. And that was organization. So Rocker62 needs to organize. And I thought, hey, we will help him. I will do a video, and I'm counting on the community to add their input into the comments so that we can help get this guy's environment better organized. But yeah, I'm surprised we didn't do it. As I was thinking about how to frame this information, I started to realize I think the reason I haven't done this before is because organization is something that seems very individualized to me. But that does not mean there aren't general principles we can employ, general techniques. And yes, you might not want to keep your socks in the same drawer I want to keep my socks in, but it doesn't matter. If we get away from the very specifics and deal with the general, I think we are all looking at this same problem, same solution. So let's start with the small, manageable spaces, because I firmly believe that if you just walk in your front door one morning and say, I'm going to organize this whole house, well, you're not going to get it done in a day. And if you don't get it done in a day and you were thinking you're going to, you're setting yourself up for failure. And better to have a series of small successes and get the job done than a single giant failure that leaves you depressed and miserable with a disorganized house still. So how do you benefit? So let's talk about small organizational projects. This is the sort of thing that you can take on in an hour. You have a free hour in the afternoon, in the morning, in the evening, whatever. Your dresser will have a number of drawers. Each one of those drawers represents an individual organizational project. So what I do with my drawer, because I have a cat, I take the entire drawer out of the dresser, set it on my bed, and throw everything out onto the bed. Start off with the drawer. This is where I will begin with the completely empty drawer. If it needs to be cleaned, I will clean it. If it needs new lining paper in the bottom of the drawer, I will throw in some new lining paper. I will check things like mothballs. And yes, I do use mothballs. I know some of you are not going to be able to do that. And I am Don't worry, Audie does not like mothballs. He avoids them, so I don't have to worry about that. If I thought there was even the slightest possibility he would go near a mothball, I would not use them. But fortunately, Audie has an aversion to mothballs, so they're safe enough here. If I have mothballs in that drawer, I will check, do they need to be replaced? If I do not have mothballs, if I'm using little cedar blocks instead, yes, I have those too. I make sure they have been either sanded. You can revitalize cedar moth prevention blocks simply with a little sandpaper. Once you sand the surface, that lovely cedar smell comes right back. It only takes a few seconds. You don't even need to go out into the workshop to do it. You get yourself the sandpaper, stand over the trash can, a few flicks, and that's it. Do both sides, get it back in there. Easy as you please. If you use shelf paper to line your drawers, this is when you change it. Now, the next part is the actual organization. Once we have a clean, empty drawer, this is when the work begins. I know, as if cleaning the drawer alone hasn't been the work. No, this is the actual work of organizing the space. And I think I said we were doing a sock drawer. Doesn't matter. It can be a t-shirt drawer, it can be an underwear drawer, but for the sake of our demonstration purposes, we're going to stick with socks. Got a whole bunch of socks, they're all over the bed. First thing we're going to do is take any socks that do not have partners and set them aside. We're going to set them aside for a reason, but for the moment we're setting them aside. Now we have nothing but socks in sets of 2. We're going to look at every pair of socks. Is it clean? In other words, not permanently stained. I'm not suggesting you keep dirty socks in your drawers or anything like that, but not permanently stained. I can give you a concrete example of this. I use wool socks, and it's very, very difficult to get white wool clean. I find that my white wool socks have a limited life expectancy. So if I want a pair of white socks, I do not get expensive socks. I get reasonably inexpensive socks because I know they are going to get donated long before they have used their serviceable life. And that is because they will start to gray out. I figure most white items, not just socks, but socks are the big culprit for me. Most white wool items really do not have an unlimited number of washings in them. In the case of socks, they gray up pretty easily. So, yes, if it's stained like that, set it aside. Maybe you might want to keep it, but for the moment, we're going to set it aside. So anything that is stained, anything that is torn or you've worn through holes in the bottom or holes at the toes, wherever it is your socks get holes, if you're not planning to darn them, and not very many people are darning socks these days, those need to be tossed. You can't even really donate them. They're not serviceable any longer. If there are socks that do not fit you, set them aside. If there are socks you do not like, you're not wearing them, you look at them and say, oh yeah, I remember when I got those for my birthday 2 years ago and I haven't worn them, not once, set them aside. The socks that are left over should be the socks that you like, that are clean, not stained. Still, you wouldn't be ashamed to go in your stocking feet around your house if the Queen came by to tea. So, They need to be in presentable, respectable condition. They stay. Do you like them? They stay. So you have all of these socks. There we go. That sock drawer is now organized. So we pick up the dresser drawer, stick it back in the dresser. Now we go back to that pile of socks we had set aside. And we need to deal with that because they can't just sit on the bed. You know, sooner or later you're going to want to go to sleep and you're not going to want to do it with a bed full of socks. Anything that is damaged, take a look. It's possible that you have multiple pairs of socks that are the same. With men, that's a big thing. They might have 5 pairs of identical black socks. See if you've got a potential mate for, that straggler, whose partner has a hole in it. Maybe you do. Maybe you can turn that into another pair. If you can, great. You fold them up, they go into the drawer. If you don't, they're going to have to be thrown away. There is very little value in one lone sock. Yes, you can use it as a dust rag. And if you are in the habit of reusing your items for dust rags or for, some people make rag rugs out of old bits of clothing. If you have the skill, if you have a hobby like this, by all means, throw them into your rag bag. Just make sure that rag bag is actually getting used, that this is something that you are actively using pretty much all the time. Because if your rag bag is just this large bag of torn and useless items that you just can't bear to throw away, well, we're going to have to organize that rag bag soon, aren't we? If the socks are still useful, like my rather grayed white socks, those are wool socks. They will be useful as donations, particularly in the winter, when a lot of people who need warm socks are not going to care much if they are white or gray. If you can donate them, donate them. If they don't fit you any longer, they probably need to go into the donation pile. If you don't like them and haven't worn them in 3 years, put them in the donation pile. And that is going to take care of our sock situation. Now, after our dresser drawer has gone back into the dresser, and we're going through these little orphan socks, we may find a couple of pair that need to go back in. And it's possible that pair of socks you really don't like, haven't worn, but is brand new, and they were probably very expensive when the person who gifted them to you went out and purchased them. Maybe you might want to consider putting them back in your drawer, put them in the front of your drawer, and leave them there for a month or two, and see if you ever go back and grab them out of the drawer to give them a try. Maybe you might be willing to wear them again. Also, they might be very good socks for, sports or gardening or camping or going somewhere where what your socks look like is completely irrelevant to everybody, including you. If they are serviceable socks, you may be able to find a use for them. So that is how we're going to tackle our dresser drawer. Now, same principle applies to everything else in our dresser, with the exception of the fact that most of the rest of our stuff doesn't come in pairs, so we don't have to worry too much about, if this sock has no little friend, it's going to have to go. But in general, that is the way to deal with organizing your dresser. Now, as you can see just from the explanation, hopefully that is something that will not have taken you more than an hour or two, even if you are easily distracted, you're not really applying yourself, you're taking a lunch break. It's not an overwhelming job. That's something most of us can do on the fly if we have a little extra time in the morning or the afternoon. Easy. So what happens when it's a slightly bigger job? Well, closets. Let's move over to closets now. In general, the same principle applies to closets. The most effective way to deal with your closet is to unload everything from the closet. Yep, you will have clothing stacked up on your beds. It'll be on the floor, it'll be on the chairs, it'll be on the dresser, it'll be on every flat surface available to you. That is the best way. Is that the only way? No, it is not. Very often, that's the part of closet cleaning that just overwhelms us. The idea that we are going to have to pull everything out of the closet. No, we don't. You can clean your closet in halves. You take the left half today, the right half, maybe sometime next week. Doesn't matter, you'll get to it. Take half of the stuff out of your closet. Draw that imaginary line down the center. And start on whichever side you prefer. Move the stuff out. And the same principle applies. You clean the inside of the closet. Make sure everything is dust-free. The floor is swept, mopped, vacuumed, whatever your floor surface is tended to. This is the point at which you can look at things like the shelving systems in your closet. Are they in good repair? Do they need fixing? You don't necessarily have to fix them at this moment, but this is the time when you're going to be able to identify a problem that you may need to deal with later. Anyway, get everything out. Same thing. Nothing goes back in unless you have carefully examined it. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, but my closet is in chaos, and the organizational problem is I was hoping to get all my blouses together, I was hoping to get all my skirts together. That's okay. That will come later. All you're really doing when you do a half clean on your closet is cleaning the interior of the actual closet itself, checking the clothing you're putting back. Do they need to be repaired? Do they still fit you? Do you like them? Is this something that you will wear? If it's something that you have not worn in a very long time, set it aside, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Set it aside. The stuff that goes back into your closet should be things that fit you, things that are in good repair, things that you like. I'm not going to go further and say things that are still in fashion, because I don't care if it's still in fashion. If I like my 1980s stuff, it's going back in my closet. And I strongly suggest that all of you look at this from the same point of view. If you like it, then it's on trend. That's simple. Do not let other people tell you what to put on your body. Nothing could be more personal than what you put on your body. Don't let other people make that decision for you. So the stuff that goes back in is clean. It's in good repair. It fits. We like it. Back in the closet. The things that were left on the bed, the things that didn't make it into the closet, same process. Is this something that is not fit for donation? Well, yeah, rag bag again. Yes, very often we will have things that are not worth fixing because they're fast fashion. We didn't pay that much for them. The idea of putting work into repairing this item it's just not feasible, because quite frankly, a lot of these fast fashion items, they were never designed to be repairable in the first place, and even with serious sewing skills, you could find you just can't fix them. Accept that, throw it away, move on. And then after that, you take a look at the things that can be donated. And in the end, there may be a few things left behind that you're uncertain about. I don't know about this. Maybe I like it. Maybe I don't like it. I'm not sure if it fits me, but I don't want to try it on now. I go through that, by the way, in the winter, when I do not want to strip down to my skivvies to try something on, stand in the mirror, with a top that doesn't go with the pants I'm wearing. I don't want to do that. I'll wait until the weather is more suitable and then try it on. So yeah, there can be reasons for procrastinating. But if you have a few things like that, set them aside. Put them in a spare bedroom. Put them on the back of the bathroom door. Whatever. Set them aside somewhere, because they will be dealt with when you clean the other half of the closet. So once first half is done and you've gone on with your life, a little time has gone by, and you say, well, it's about time I clean the second half of my closet. Same process. Everything out. Clean the closet itself. Start moving things back in. This is the point at which you can start the actual organization of your stuff. And when I say organization, keep in mind, if you've done this right the first time, your closet is already fairly organized. You've put your clothing up on the hangers, on the racks. Your shoes are down somewhere, wherever you keep your shoes. It's reasonably organized already. This is where we're doing the fun part of the organization. This is where we get to look at things like, do I want to put all my blouses together? Do I want to put all my trousers together? Do I want to organize by color? Let's face it, I don't know about you guys, but I could go all David Beckham on my closet and it would not bother me a bit. But I don't do that. I do not organize according to color. That works for some people. Doesn't work for me. I organize mine according to material. This is a wool sweater. This will go onto a hanger that is color-coded for wool sweaters. So seriously, I do that. This will go on a black coat hanger into the closet in the section, not just of wool sweaters, but of long-sleeved wool sweaters. That's where it's going to go. That's what organization looks like to me. That is probably not what it looks like to you. I know a lot of people with very, very organized closets, and I am the only one who sorts clothing by fabric content. I don't know what to say about that. That probably makes me highly eccentric, and I'm sure most of you can come up with other words for that. But yeah, that's what works for me. The reason it works for me is it tells me where my winter things are. And if it's going to be a cool day today, I want to be able to reach over into the cooler section of my closet. The wools, the cashmeres, the fabrics that are going to do well when it's chilly. I'm not going to be grabbing linen t-shirts. That won't be happening. So they're on the other side of the closet. That's how I do my organizing. I would say the most common organizational styles are item type, all tops in one section, all bottoms in another, trousers, skirts, dresses somewhere else, jackets somewhere else. Most people do it that way. When you get past that point, you can narrow things down even more discreetly. Short sleeve tops, long sleeve tops, heavy tops. You can even start pairing up items you wear together. If you have, for example, a button-down shirt that you almost always wear with a pullover sweater or a sweater vest or whatever. You might want to tie those two in together. Put that shirt in, put the vest next to it, so that when you go into the closet and look at what you have there, you're not just seeing that button-down shirt that it's just a button-down shirt. It doesn't speak to you. You're seeing it in combination with something you wear with it, and that does speak to you. So it's not just, oh, there's a dull old button-down shirt. You're looking at this, you're saying, oh, that is the vest I like so much, and that goes so well with that shirt, and that's what I'm wearing tomorrow. So that is the fun part of organizing. Let's just quickly switch this over to the kitchen, because I know we're starting to run out of time now. Let's switch over to the kitchen. Kitchen cabinets, same thing. Everything out. Clean the cabinets. This is more work, because it's always more work to clean a kitchen cabinet. But stick with it, you'll get there. When you start putting things back in the cabinets, you're looking for undamaged cans. You would be surprised how many cans somehow magically get damaged just sitting in your kitchen cabinets. And by that, I don't mean things like dents. You can live with a dented can. But if it has like rust, or if for some reason or other the lid's been punctured and something is oozing out the top, oh, those need to be thrown away. Absolutely. No, do not try to eat that. Just get rid of it. Look for expiration dates, and I talked about that the last time I cleaned my cabinet. It was embarrassing, but I had things that had expired in 2017, meaning I probably bought them in 2012, and they've been sitting there. Do those need to go? Oh, yes, because if I haven't eaten something since 2012, how likely do you think it is that I'm going to eat it anytime soon? I would say not likely at all. So don't be afraid to throw things away. That's hard for our generation. I know this. We were raised not to waste food. That was like the cardinal sin in most households. But we need to be realistic about it. If you haven't eaten it and you can't donate it, which you can't if it's past its expiration date, move it into the trash. Just let's let it go. The next part in the kitchen is we look at access. The items you use most often should be on the most accessible shelves. And then you can fine-tune that from there. It's not just a question of that can of brown bread needs to go on the top shelf. And, the extra jar of mayonnaise needs to go on the bottom shelf. It's a little more than that. If you are looking to organize your food in such a way that it's easy for you to grab food out of your cabinet, make sure the cabinet that holds your food is very near your range, your microwave, your sink if possible, but the areas right next to your cooking equipment. That's where you would want to store food. If you're looking for a good place to store dishes, you're going to want to store them near your sink or your dishwasher. That's the part that makes sense. And that's when you can fine-tune this. Again, the fun part of organizing, when you actually get to be creative, to arrange your organizing spaces to meet your particular needs. Your kitchen is not going to be set up the way mine is. If I use a cabinet for food because it happens to be very close to my kitchen sink, for example, that might not work for you. Your range might be on the other side of the kitchen. That may be where you will want to keep your food. I would like the idea of keeping my flatware, my silverware, next to the sink so that when it's washed, it can go in. That works for me. You might want your flatware on the other side of the kitchen next to the table, so when you take it out, it's handy to the table. That would work for you. These are very individual decisions, but once the cabinet's clean, once we're loading things back in, this is the time we can start making those decisions, the decisions that are unique to us and our particular circumstances. So, we did not get all the way through organizing. I think we will pick this up at some other time, because organizing, there have been time studies done. And this was a big thing in the 50s. It was work efficiency and time studies dealing with how to best utilize a kitchen. They would tell housewives, this is where this item should go, that is where the other item should go. We can absolutely take a look at that because people have done it. It may not work for us. Very few of us are 1950s housewives, so we may want to bring our own spin into this, but we can do this. We can look at those outside sources. They are there. I know where to find them. So we may end up picking this up later on. However, in the meantime, what I would like you as our community to do is leave comments. Leave your own organizational tips and tricks. When we've been talking about this, what works for you? Leave it in the comments so that we can all learn from each other so that we can get better. And believe me, I absolutely love them. I get so many good ideas from you folks. But once you put your ideas in the comments, they're available to everyone in the community. And we are all in this mess together, aren't we? All right. Thank you so much for being with me. We did have a little bit of Audie time. So we are going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. For those of you who join us for Just Chatting, it'll be 8 o'clock this evening, New York City time. Everybody else, I hope to see you again next weekend. And in the meanwhile, have a terrific day.